Cradle, Dogs of Fount, Chapter 19. The land was barren here. Each step Nate made on the dusty turf sounded like a cough, which made his approach just a bit more dramatic. He was close to the military base's west entrance, and here everything had been leveled a couple years ago for an expansion of the base that hadn't come to fruition yet. It was literally acres of flat, dusty field. He was somewhat relieved to see the lone building getting manageably closer. There were two pickups in the lot of the white roof cube of a building. The pickups weren't civilian, they were military made, and probably came with names like Hawk, Cobra, or Bison. Who knew? Nate thought about Hawkbird consequently. Hawkbird was a warrior of legend-like proportions in Philadelphia. She was one of the chiefs sent on a mission to give Nate and Heather something to offer the general. Nate knew she was fast because of the mech legs she used, but even other warriors with them couldn't compare in speed. She was deadly with all the weapons the armory offered, and she was pretty as told by those who ever saw her face. Nate covered his face from a gust of carrying dust. She got the name of an outlaw undercover in Fount's military who was selling stolen Fount military tech and weapons to outlaws back in the heap. Real juicy bargaining chip in Nate's eyes. Nate opened the glass pane door and felt the dusty wind resisting him as he did. Inside, the echoes howled low like wolves in the distant night. There were two white doors in the far side of the room, and in this room, tall windows that looked over the dusty ground with a long, foldable table, a handful of metal cushioned chairs, and the general in one eyeing Nate with something of boredom. "Hey there, sir," Nate greeted as he sat. The general looked at his black steel watch and peered at Nate pointedly. "Not much time to spend fooling with you, Lent," he began. "I want to hear what you have to say in regards to why you are not leaving immediately." "You're right. You do want to hear what I have to say." "Pretty bold talk for the position you're in," Arturo responded. This was starting to get really fun for Nate, and he had to keep his poker face or the whole plan would curdle. "Heard you keep a tight ship as far as your fighting force," Nate threw. "Yeah, you know this." "Not too tight," Nate said. "Sure, son, you have nothing." "I might not have anything, but someone's got something or some things that belong to you," Nate smiled mildly. Arturo sat further back in his chair and waited. "I want 3 weeks in our hideout, no antagonizing," Nate demanded. "You don't make demands when you have nothing to offer yet," the general said. "Do you really want to lose what I know? I've probably taken craps that were worth more than what you got." "Funny. Probably were pretty big craps then." Arturo nodded. Nate's screen buzzed in his pocket and he pulled it out and read it as the general responded. 3 weeks and that's it. Now tell me what's going on." But Heather texted, "Don't give him the mole. He's connected with outlaws selling the contraband to Cyphers. If the general found out, he may strike a deal at the detriment to Philadelphia." Nate stood up, cleared his throat. "I have to leave, and back to you. Good day." "You have until the end of the day to come up with intel, or getting booted will be an understatement." Nate nodded and walked to the glass door and into the swirling dust outside. "Talk about a fizzle," Nate said to himself. He was on an express bus heading east on Highway Route 1. The smooth electric hum of the AC was threatening to put him to sleep, and as an alien, that just wasn't something he could do. He looked down at his orange-tinted screen, and there were no more texts from Heather. There was no reason anything would happen to her while he was gone, but he had been consistently worrying about her since she saved him from wasting the scoop on the general. He couldn't even tell himself why she was so important to him. It was possible it was everything they've been through together, or simply how beautiful she was. It really was of no importance to Nate why, but she had him more than she probably knew. After switching buses in Doubletree Courts, a luxury townhouse development, he hopped on the 77R and made it to the corner of their apartment building. It took about 2.5 hours to get there from the base. There were dark clouds coming in from the west, and they had been following him on the bus the whole trip. It was probably a nasty and short thunderstorm coming, Nate thought. There were about 4 people visible on the block, and none of them carried themselves like they knew gun work, so he headed inside, hoping to see Heather. Well, He opened their apartment door and their packs were sitting there stuffed on the floor in front of the couch. He heard Heather clanking dishes in the kitchen, and just as he turned back around after shutting the door, she was on her way to him with a plate which had a sandwich and chips on the side. She handed it to him. He grinned. She nodded. "We have to hurry up and finish eating before they get a secure trail on us," Heather said. Nate was crunching on chips. "Oh yeah, I mean they're probably watching us now," Nate said with the food in his mouth. "It makes no difference. We'll shake them near the wall or in a forest." Nate sat in the easy chair and went on to finish the salt and vinegar kettle chips and chicken salad sandwich. Heather came in and sat down on the couch with the beer. She waited for Nate to notice her and then tossed him a can and cracked open her own. They consumed in silence for a few moments. Nate was honestly enjoying the makeshift meal, and with the last bite he looked over at Heather and caught her smiling at him. His face shined and even he was aware of it. They laughed through the tension and settled back into silence. "Come on," she said. "We have to get out of here." They walked for a mile in the heat with their packs on their backs. They had to wear their tactical jackets because rolling them in the pack would damage the electronics, so Nate was sweating thoroughly by the time they made it on the bus. Just before they got on the bus, Heather deployed their one and only microbot. It was a 1-inch block computer with 4 wheels. It would keep up with them and report any trailing or surveillance of the two of them. Nate and Heather were heading south to the South Shire, in particular Pine Beach, the northern point of Ruin Lake. From there, it would be a 2-mile walk to the south wall where Heather and Nate would leave Fount heading back to the heat. For the whole trip, the microbot was silent with no reports. They got off at Pine Beach and it was quiet and dark, save a little shine from the waning moon. The microbot was still half a mile behind them, but Heather decided to keep it tracking them just in case. Nate's jacket started to feel a bit more comfortable while on the bus, but now that he stepped off, the heat of the day was still lingering even at this time of night. Heather tightened the padded strap of her pack and they began walking for the wall. The pines on the east side of the road were tall and massive and only allowed slivers of the sky to the two. Nate wanted to talk because the walk was getting oppressively boring, but the better part of him knew they weren't out of the woods yet. The irony of the saying lifted a corner of his mouth. About 5 minutes from the wall, Nate and Heather spotted headlights near the hidden ladder and rope satchel waiting for them. They hid it under fake leaves, a camouflage tarp in earnest. They faded east within the tree line, still nothing from the microbot, and it was only 400 yards behind them. Owls began hooting and rustling leaves scratched the air near them, but Nate and Heather were solely focused on the headlights that were now approaching their direction on the road. Finally, the vehicle was within view, and indeed it was a police car. The black and white Marlboro Metro Cruiser passed them and didn't seem to see them. It kept going at a steady rate, and Nate looked at Heather. "Let's just go for it now," she said. They broke out into a swift jog toward the wall and looking back to make sure the lights were receding. They made it there in about 6 minutes and uncovered the ladder and rope. The rope was to pull the ladder over with them to keep this weak point concealed from official knowledge. Nate placed the ladder against the wall and gestured for Heather to go first. She climbed fluidly up and shimmied over a few feet to the ladder waiting on the other side. Nate climbed as fast as he could, and by chance he looked back and saw the headlights of the cruiser coming back down the road less than 2 minutes away. Nate had the rope in his hand and as he got on the other side, but there wasn't time to tie it and pull the other ladder over, so he tried to just grab it with his hand and haul it over, but there wasn't enough time from his gauge of the situation. "Screw it," he said and pushed the ladder over, letting it fall back on the Fount side.